I appreciate you both taking the time to speak with me today. Congratulations on a wonderful documentary. I say that because you're telling a story that not everybody knows. There are certain things that everybody knows whether or not they're correct. Not everybody knew the story behind The Right to Rock. But when was it, this first one goes to Bobby Joe, when was it actually finished, the documentary?
Well, I mean, I was pushing to launch it at Hot Docs in 2020. And then when the pandemic hit, Hot Docs was really wonderful and agreed to, I really didn't want to release it virtually and have, after 50 years of Fanny working so hard to be recognized for their legacy, to have it be released virtually. I wanted them to be able to be in cinemas, be able to, or drive-in, or at least, and feel that energy from the public. That was really important to me. Otherwise, I'd feel just so abstract to be virtual. So Hot Docs was really cool and agreed to wait. And so what happened in the meantime, though, was it gave us more time to kind of finish the film in a little longer way. So part of that fun was that June Millington did a lot of real original, amazing riffs, including the first one that opens the film, which we would not have had time to do had we rushed to push it out in 2020. So it actually ended up being finished, I would guess, in early 2021, because we just took our time and added more animated elements. And as I mentioned about, June's riffs were amazing. She collaborated with Daniel Toussaint, our sound and music guy in the post-production, and it was amazing.
June, having a film about you must be a huge honor, but also tough to look at so much old footage of yourself. So is it 90% positive at this point, as opposed to the 10%? Oh.
There's very little that I look at and go, oh. I would say that for the most part, it's an honest look at our real endeavor to get on this adventure, do the best we could. In fact, I think we did even better than we thought we could, and succeed. So I'm really proud of that, and the music holds up now. And surprisingly, we can still play. I mean, that was the thing that excited us. Wow, people can see us play. I mean, it's true that Jean had her stroke and she can't play, but at the gig that we did in LA at Outfest, her son played bass and she sang, and it worked really great. I mean, he got a whole new appreciation for her through playing her bass parts, because they're not easy.
And before, because I'm rudely interrupting you here, Bobby Joe, June, when did you first meet Bobby Joe?
I met her by phone. She called up after she had seen me on the Taylor Guitar website, a page of a really great bio that they put together on me. And she got the hit. She was looking for a guitar for her daughter. And she called me up and just raved and raved. And why did I not know about you before? Which is exactly what people say now. It's a continuation of what her reaction was to finding out about me and Fanny. I was just like, what?
Yeah, I can imagine. Bobby Joe, as a filmmaker, what was the hardest part of putting together this documentary? Was it rights clearances?
I mean, from a work standpoint, yeah, rights clearances are very difficult, and trying to get European video rights or this or that. It was very hard, but I mean, my background, my degree is in international relations. So I come from a liberal arts background and a human rights background. So I would say the hardest for me is that moment when the band is watching the film and wanting to feel that I honored their story as best as I humanly could with what I had to work with, and to feel that our journey together was honored, and that they felt that I honored it as best I could. That was the hardest for me, of wanting to trying desperately to find that balance, at the same time having to work with, some challenges beyond my control. A broadcaster that is buying the film based on certain factors, like, okay, these bandmates are getting back together and releasing a new album. So yeah, that narrative is great. That's a great thing to follow. And so I did that, and intercutting with this backstory, because it's important to honor all the bandmates, and one of the bandmates that didn't want to participate, Nikki, trying my best to honor her within the context of her not being there to speak for herself. And trying really hard to honor all the bandmates during the film, but also after, wanting them to feel part of the festival process and wanting them to be able to know what's going on as much as I can, as I'm struggling just to, as probably getting into festivals and then trying to get the materials. Right. And then at the same time, wanting the band to be involved and knowing what's going on. So if they want to, be somewhere and whether it's just to hang out and feel the vibe or to perform or Q&A, that's really always been really important to me, for them to feel that, because I want them to be able to be there as much as possible. I want them to, feel the public getting behind them in person as much as possible.
June, we see a lot of people in this film that mean a lot to a lot of people, talking about how amazing you are. We, of course, there's the infamous David Bowie quote from '99 or so, members of Def Leppard and the B-52s, the Runaways, etc. Who was the first significant musician you remember going, hey, I like that band?
Lowell George.
Really? Lowell George from Lil Feat? Yes.
Oh yeah, he was very close. We were very, very close friends. And I met him at a jam in LA after we moved to Fanny Hill. And we just kept looking at each other like, wow, man, it was getting hotter and hotter at the jam, And we just started to talk afterwards. And he's a person who really, without trepidation, just flat out told me, hey, you got to learn the blues, because I didn't know what the blues were. In Manila, we didn't hear the blues. We didn't know the blues, So he told me I absolutely had to learn that. And then a year later, I met Bonnie Raitt, and of course, she's well steeped in the blues, and she, etc. And Skunk Baxter was, I would say, the second one. And at the time, we were rehearsing at Warner Brothers, and he had a little guitar shop, the guitar repair shop in the Valley. And he was my guitar repairman, Lowell, actually. Justin. And once I realized that he could play, I didn't know when I brought him my first guitar. I really didn't. And I went back to pick up the guitar, and he says, oh, yeah, it plays great. He picked it up. And honestly, in my head, I thought, he's my guitar repairman. I mean, I couldn't believe how good he was. So he invited me to a gig that his new band, and I thought, that sounds like a cowboy band. I was really busy with Steely Dan. But we stuck together as friends. And when when we were both on the road, he'd call me up and we discussed, what was going on in our lives. And more importantly, these guys gave me, just sort of without really saying it, gave me the courage to experiment, which they were doing as well, So we were all creating the music or the sound, the guitar sounds that are now considered classic rock.
Yeah, I agree.
And big influence, yeah.
And Lowell's daughter, Inara George, very successful musician in her own right. One half of the band, The Bird and the Bee, written and produced for a lot of people. And Inara's husband's a top film director. So I think without you, music just wouldn't be. No, I'm kidding. Obviously, you influenced a lot of people, and that's a wonderful thing that this documentary emphasizes. Bobby Joe, is there a lot of cutting room footage? In other words, when you're taping somebody for years and years and there's multiple viewpoints and archives, you can't get everything into 90-minute to 120-minute kind of thing. So what was left out of the movie? Anything great?
Oh yeah, of course. That's also the other part I hate the most. I kind of, denial's a happy place, because I hate the cutting room floor. It's just, this could easily be a series, for heaven's sakes. It's like, different people we filmed whose interviews didn't end up in the film, whether it's Alana Miles, Grammy Award winner, Black Velvet, had amazing things to say about Fanny. There was a whole section that we did on women in music today, and discovering Fanny. And there were different bands, from Alice Merton to the Beaches, that were, the Beaches were influenced by Fanny, like it's a Toronto rock band. And they're like, oh yeah, we were listening to Fanny when we were recording our album. And then we were at different events like Osheaga or Montebello Rock Fest with different up and coming bands. But that became a whole big section on itself. And then, I have, when the rough cuts being reviewed by the different, partners, it's like, okay, that's a whole other film, you know? So we ended up just keeping a smaller portion of that. We had a much bigger section at IMA, Institute for the Musical Arts, as well. And so we had to reduce it down, kind of like squeeze the juice out of it to its essence. And we kept like one person, you know, Annie Soyak from Jackknife Stiletto from Joan Jett's label, Black Heart Records, as kind of representing these young women that are standing on Fanny's shoulders. So that's how we squeeze the juice out. But, you know, and then other people, you know, that are just scenes of, you know, Christine Ullman is amazing, and just like so many people, Leslie Ann Jones, just, yeah, that
And
we just couldn't.
There are also women who you were not able to interview, you know. I mean, it's
Yeah, exactly.
Mavis Staples. We did a lot of things with the Staples singers. Dr. John, were he still alive? I mean, these are all people we did gigs with, for example. So there were a lot of people who were part of the formative period of our not only learning how to represent a bigger sound. Every time we played, you know, we learned how to contain and represent a big sound, but also how to perform on a bigger stage. They were all part and parcel of our learning experience. And of course, Richard Perry, you know, she didn't talk too much about, you know, what are so many people to interview, but he taught us how to record, you know. So all the fights we had for him, yes, with him, yes, but quite frankly, he did teach us how to record, and we learned about mic placement and for our amps, and going direct with an amp, for example, with Jean, and so on and so forth, so she could feel like she was flying when she played.
Yeah.
All these little details are super important, but you don't get to say them all in a film because you don't have enough time.
Right. Well, speaking of not having enough time and being mindful of your time here, the last thing I want to know from both of you, and we'll start with Bobby Joe first, is what's next? And I ask that because we are conditioned to know that when a film is coming out, it probably started years ago, different chapters of your life, etc. So usually you talk to a filmmaker and they go, oh yeah, the next 2 things are in the works. In your case, can you tell us what is next for you?
You know, to be honest, I'm not sure. There's a few different potential projects, but I have to say that, I mean, I'm really right now just focused on this film and getting it to as many film festivals as possible. There's so many coming up. And a theatrical release in the States coming later this fall and earlier next year, a theatrical release in Canada this fall, and it's hitting the UK festivals very soon. And then we're in negotiations with some, you know, a big TV network in the States. And so it'll be, you know, then, you know, all the different processes, you know, television, SVOD, et cetera. So I'm just trying my best to, as the sticker says in the trailer and the film, get behind Fanny. You know, I take it very seriously, having the honor to tell their story. And I want it to get out to as many people as possible and ultimately, I'd say my next biggest project is getting Fanny into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame 2022. What could be more important than that?
Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Just saying, man.
And June, doing my research on you, you've been an artist in residence in a lot of places. You've never stopped making music, as this film points out. But what are you working on at the moment, and what's to come besides getting yourself into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in maybe 2022?
Yeah, well, I'm working on book 2 of my autobiography, and that starts in 1975. I mean, basically, the first book, Land of a Thousand Bridges, ends in 75 because I quit Fanny in 73 and I went to Woodstock and basically continued my spiritual studies there. I was reading about it, but now I started to bow to the trees and be able to meet, you know, see the guru. And also, I'm going to release an album that is of new material in the last 6 months, let's say, with Lee and his dad, Earl Slick, who were sheltering in place here. So what better thing to do than to play music every week? And a couple of things from the Fanny days I'm throwing in there. Like there was something I wrote called The Ballad of Fanny. It's just me and acoustic guitar. And no one was interested in it at the time. But now it's like really enchanting because I'm really telling the story of Fanny, you know, starting with the Svelts. And some of the songs I wrote at camp with the girls here that we re-recorded with the instructors and some of the girls. So it's quite powerful, and I'm going to release it as vinyl first. in the next few months. So those are, and I'm working on book 2, and I'm turning book 1 into an audio book. So I actually, it's so surprising I have enough time to sleep, but I am recovering from from breast cancer therapy, and it's not slowing me down. So I'm just going full tilt boogie, as I always have in my life.
Well, congratulations to you
I
both.
will be in Nashville, by the way, at that festival. So
That was the last thing I was going to say. I was going to say thanks to the Nashville Film Festival folks for making this all happen and for believing in a great film like this and putting it into the national or maybe even international spotlight. And also thanks to both of you for your time, and really looking forward to everything to come from both of you.
Thank you so much. And a quick note that Nashville had accepted the film last year, and they were so patiently waiting for it for this year too. So thank you so much, everyone in Nashville. I wish I could be there, but June will be representing. Woo!
There you go.
playing too.
Thanks, Nashville.
Yeah.
Thank you both again, and have a wonderful rest of the day there.
You
Okay,
too.
you.
Bye.
Take care.
See you soon, June.
Yeah.
Paltrocast.